I never imagined my simple prank would lead to a heartbreaking lesson on respect and humility. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs as the world around me went silent. I stood at the edge of our school parking lot, feeling the thrill of anticipation surge through me like electricity. This wasn't just any prank, it was the ultimate plan. A classic but clever scheme, designed to catch everyone off guard. Little did I know that this would be the moment when laughter turned into pain. That I looked around at my friends, faces glowing with excitement. We were a tight-knit group, bound by shared secrets and wild dreams. Jessica, always the voice of reason, cast a skeptical glance my way. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, biting her lip. I shrugged, brushing off her warnings. My best friend, Marcus, stood by my side, grinning like it was Christmas morning. I needed this. I needed to feel that rush, to be remembered for something unforgettable. But as I executed my plan, a figure emerged from the crowd. I still see him, Michael, the quiet kid with glasses too big for his face. He was never part of the joke, just the innocent bystander who stumbled into my path. When my prank unraveled, the laughter turned to gasps. The kind of gasp that slices through the air, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. Suddenly, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. The consequences of my actions were sudden and brutal. The bright summer day felt like it was closing in around me. People whispered, eyes darting toward me with judgment. I could feel their frustration, their rage. My stomach twisted in knots. What had I done? My heart sank lower than I thought possible, a hollow ache that took my breath away. I was the villain in a story I thought was just fun and games. That in that moment, everything I cherished began to unravel. Jessica looked at me, disappointment etched on her face, while Marcus fumbled with his words, struggling to defend me. I felt alone, stranded in a sea of shocked faces and whispered judgments. Had I crossed a line I couldn't come back from? My palms grew clammy, my breath shallow. I could see Michael standing there, tears glistening in his eyes, the world around him gone quiet. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt anyone. But the gravity of my actions landed heavily on my chest, suffocating me. I tried to reach out, to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. Then, out of the blue, a teacher yelled for silence. An authoritative voice that commanded attention. I watched as Michael was led away, the shadows swallowing him whole. What would happen now? I had no idea. I stood there, caught between regret and fear, my heart in turmoil. This wasn't just a prank anymore. It had turned into a reckoning. Would I have the chance to make it right? Or was I destined to carry this weight forever? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days following the incident felt like a surreal nightmare I couldn't wake from. Each morning, I woke up hoping it had all been a bad dream, but the biting reality clung to me like a damp fog. I walked through the school halls with my head down, the whispers and sidelong glances like barbs against my skin. Somewhere inside, I clung desperately to the hope that things would settle down, that maybe I could find my way back to the joyful buzz of friendship. But with each day that passed, it became increasingly clear that I had shifted into a different world where laughter was now a weapon aimed at me. Jessica and Marcus had stopped hanging around me in the same way. Their reassurances, words meant to soften the blow, felt hollow now. Marcus tried to laugh with me during lunch, but I could see the trepidation in his eyes. He didn't want to take sides, but felt compelled to distance himself from the fallout. Jessica had opted for concerned silence, her worry communicating more than words ever could. I was drifting away, a ghost in my own life, haunted by the specter of the pain I'd caused. Each day brought a new wave of guilt crashing over me. I would close my eyes and replay that moment when Michael had walked into my prank. The joy of anticipation shattered like glass at our feet. I could still see the tears on his cheeks, the innocence lost in a cruel twist of chaos. Regret consumed me, and every attempt to speak to him felt like climbing a mountain without gear. I didn't know how to approach him. Every time I imagined it, words tangled up in my throat, turning to ashes. That weekend, I sat in my room, surrounded by remnants of who I used to be. Pictures of happier times with my friends adorned the walls, memories of laughter now woven with shadows of shame. I pulled out my phone, hesitant hands letting it slip as I thought of sending a message to Michael. "I'm sorry," felt like an inadequate start. How do you apologize for a moment that changes everything? But the very act of trying felt like a first step. Even if my heart pounded with fear each time I imagined the rejection as I stared at the screen, a notification lit up. Jessica had tagged me in a post. My heart raced as I clicked on it. The image froze me in place. It was Michael, sitting on a bench, head bowed, surrounded by classmates who were trying to lighten the mood with laughter that felt forced. My stomach dropped as I recognized the ache in his posture. It echoed my own. Beneath the caption, "Sometimes it just takes a little kindness to bridge the gap," were dozens of supportive comments, flowing like a river of sympathy in the face of the storm. But there, too, were the cruel reminders of my actions, subtle jabs disguised as humor. The juxtaposition struck me. Some stood behind Michael, showing him love, while others stood beside me, their disapproval whispering louder than words ever could. I put my phone down and buried my face in my hands, the tears finally flowing, releasing what felt like a dam of suffocating sorrow. How could I have hurt someone so innocent? How had I become the person who would let this happen? Amidst the revelry of resilience from my classmates, I noticed a comment from a girl I didn't know well, Mia. "Michael, you're stronger than they will ever know. We see you." Something about her words touched me, igniting a spark of hope amidst the tumult. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was still a way to reach Michael, to atone for my actions. With newfound determination, I decided to go to the park that evening where we used to play, where we'd laugh under the sun. I knew it was risky, but the thought of remaining stagnant was more terrifying than facing Michael. The dusky twilight cast long shadows across the park. I saw him sitting there all alone. The loneliness radiated from him, and for a moment, I almost turned back. But then I imagined the weight I would carry if I stayed silent, and I steeled myself. "Michael," I called, voice trembling. He looked up slowly, surprise flickering in his eyes. My heart raced as I took a tentative step forward. "I need to talk to you." He hesitated, a mix of defenses and trepidation etched across his face. "What do you want?" I swallowed hard, confronting the enormity of what I had to say. I just wanted to say, but before I could finish, a group of older kids came barreling around the corner, their laughter like knives slicing through the air. They spotted us, and without hesitation, made their way over. I froze, dread enveloping me as I saw their smirks. Could feel the returning coldness of judgment wash over us both. In that instant, Michael's face fell, silhouettes of familiar cruelty looming over him. I wanted to reach out, to stand in front of him, to shield him, but I was just a kid too, frozen in fear. Then, one of them spoke, pointing at Michael, and the snap of laughter filled the air, loud and cruel. But my moment to act came unexpectedly when Mia from earlier stepped in front of the group, her demeanor fierce and resolute. "Back off. You think it's funny? He better than all of you combined." The courage in her voice ignited the tiniest flame of hope within me, and when she turned to Michael, a soft reassurance broke through the chaos. "You're not alone, remember that." And just like that, what felt like an unendurable burden began to shift. But as I finally prepared to speak to Michael, the universe threw one more challenge our way. A video notification pinged on my phone, and I braced myself, fearing what it might reveal. A voice came through, an unexpected voice, sending chills down my spine. "Hey everyone, look what I found." It was footage of my prank, now in the hands of someone who didn't care about context, someone who saw only the spectacle. The irreparable damage of it all flashed across my mind, revealing a truth darker than I ever anticipated. The real danger was just beginning. The sensation of helplessness wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud. The laughter from the older kids echoed in my mind, a sinister soundtrack to the unraveling moment that now unfolded before me. I stood there, paralyzed, my phone in hand, the screen illuminating my face with the horror of my past actions, every pixel a reminder of how far I had fallen. As the video played, laughter rang out, blending with the cruel taunts of my peers. "Look at him," one of the older boys jeered. Classic fail. Their delight was intoxicating, feeding off the confusion and shame etched into Michael's expression. I could feel my heart racing, pounding against my chest as anger surged within me. How could they be so callous? And why was I still standing there? But Mia had created a crack in their bravado. She stood tall, facing the group with a fierce compassion, challenging their cruelty with her mere presence. "You think this is funny?" she snapped, her voice steady. "This isn't a joke, it's someone else's life you're playing with." I caught a glimpse of Michael behind her, his eyes searching for something. I wanted to reach out, to pull him from the shadows of this spiraling moment, but I felt my resolve quiver. I was aware of the weight of my own guilt, the guilt that had stitched me to the ground instead. Yet, standing with Mia, I understood that my silence was no longer an option. Just as the laughter crescendoed, I mustered all my courage. "Stop!" The word came out louder than I had anticipated, slicing through the tension like glass. "What is wrong with you guys?" Their laughter faltered, turning into surprised glances as they tried to process my sudden, unexpected defiance. "Why don't you guys just leave him alone?" I pleaded, my voice shaky yet fervent. "He has been through enough. What do you gain from this?" For a moment, the air thickened as my outburst hung in the balance. And then I saw a flicker of something in Michael's eyes, a fleeting sense of gratitude tangled with insecurity. It bolstered me, driving another wave of words forward. "I'm sorry for what I did, Michael. I was foolish." But this I gestured to the chaos around us, the laughter that left scars deeper than any wound. "This isn't right." The older kids shifted, glancing at each other as if trying to decide which role they needed to assume, the adversary or the innocent bystander. It was Mia who broke the spell, her gaze unwavering, acting as a shield for us both. "You think you're strong? Try being nice for a change." As the tide started to turn, I felt the first glimmer of hope blossom in my chest. Perhaps this would be the turning point, an awakening that we could look back on, a moment of solidarity. But just then, the laughter faded, and one of the older kids, a boy with a menacing smile named Jake, pulled out his phone, grinning. "Let us see how many likes I can get on this." His intent was clear, and in that instant, the air felt electric with impending dread. "Stop!" I pleaded again, desperation washing over me. The awareness of my own failure lanced through the hopeful ambience like a dark cloud. "You can't do that. What is funny about torturing someone who is already hurting?" He shrugged nonchalantly, his discomfort mingling with cruel delight. "He is just a loser anyway." The words were jagged shards, each a piercing reminder of the monster I had contributed to creating. And then something within me snapped. "You know what, Jake? You're small time. You will never be bigger than your petty need for attention and validation." My heart raced as I felt the weight of my words hanging in the air, unsure if they had hit their mark or simply fed his savagery. Finally, with a slight smile and poetic irony, Michael spoke up, his voice trembling yet clear. "And you are just a reflection of what happens when you don't know how to build people up, only knock them down." The silence that followed felt like a gasp of fresh air against the chaos, an oasis in the midst of emotional turmoil. I stole a glance at Michael and was surprised to see the burgeoning flicker of courage awaken in his chest, a beautiful ember igniting in response to our defiance. But before we could celebrate this small victory, a sudden shift in the atmosphere stole the warmth. Our teachers, having heard the commotion and the laughter, arrived on the scene. Their authoritative presence loomed over us like storm clouds gathering for a fierce tempest. But instead of bringing comfort, my stomach churned at the thought of the repercussions to come. As I watched the situation spiral, the school administrator pulled me aside. "We need to talk about what just happened," she said, her eyes probing. "Both of you will have to discuss this with us tomorrow. We have to address the bullying." And just like that, the world tilted again, sending waves of fear crashing into the heart of our moment. Instead of being a stepping stone towards resolution, I worried it would become yet another nail in the coffin of my efforts, trapping me deeper into a cycle of shame. I faced a potential storm of consequences. I looked at Michael and realized the truth that had emerged. We were both standing at the crossroads, learning that redemption often comes with a price again. But as the weight of uncertainty loomed heavier, a shared understanding passed between us. We might just be the catalyst for something that hadn't existed before, a bond forged in the fire of our vulnerability. Yet as we prepared to part ways that evening, the real cast of darkness loomed on the horizon, a reality that made my heart sink. I caught sight of a shadowy figure watching us from afar. It was an unfamiliar face, lurking just beyond the fading twilight, a figure that would soon reignite the embers of conflict that had momentarily dimmed. Hope and dread coiled like smoke around us, leaving me uneasy to sleep, knowing our journey was far from over. The latch of the school gate clanged shut behind me, the metallic sound echoing in the empty evening air. I could feel the weight of anticipation and dread in my chest, a tight knot that seemed to embolden itself with every step I took toward home. The flickering streetlights threw shadows that danced alongside me, ghostly reminders of the confrontation that had unspooled in the courtyard and the turmoil that lay ahead. Mia had told me to take things easy, to remember that bravery doesn't mean being unafraid. Yet, the idea of facing the principal and the inevitable questioning filled me with a sense of impending doom. I could envision the look on my parents' faces, the way disappointment would pool in their eyes. Just as my thoughts sunk deeper into despair, I chanced to look at my phone, hoping to find a comforting message from Mia. But instead, I was greeted by a deluge of notifications, an avalanche of hate-filled comments cascading in from the video Jake had uploaded, each one more cutting than the last. Engulfed in shame, I scrolled through them, unable to quell the rising tide of anxiety. Look who's trying to be a knight in shining armor, but can't even save himself. And, nice try, loser, but you can't change your past. I stopped myself before it consumed me, feeling tears welling behind my eyes. I had wanted to protect Michael, to shield him from further hurt, but instead, my actions seemed to have inadvertently drawn attention to my own failures and flaws. Once home, I retreated to my room, the walls closing in as I locked the door behind me. I could still hear snippets of the laughter from earlier, haunting me, a relentless siren that reverberated through my brain. I flopped onto my bed, the weight of the day gnawing at my spirit. When my mother knocked, her voice soft and soothing, it cut through my despair. "Honey, can we talk?" she asked, pulling me momentarily from the precipice of my spiraling thoughts. I hesitated, wrestling with the urge to shut her out. But with reluctance, I opened the door a crack, letting her in. Her expression, concern intertwined with love, made me wince. "I heard you were involved in a situation at school," she began gently. "Do you want to share?" The gravity of her gaze pierced through my defenses. I felt warmth creeping into my cheeks as I muttered the truth. I stood up for someone, but it didn't help, it only made things worse. The vulnerability of my admission left me trembling. She sat beside me, brushing a stray hair behind my ear. Sometimes the right choice can feel the hardest. It requires strength and courage to stand up for others, even when it might seem futile. "I'm proud of you for that." Her words, though meant to comfort, felt insufficient against the tidal wave of regret and guilt swirling in my mind. I wanted to believe her. Yet, the evening's shadow hung heavy. But I didn't fix anything. I just made it worse for both of us. I could feel the tears break free, hot and blinding, as the reality of my emotional struggle tumbled out with my words. "Oh, sweetie," she said softly, wrapping her arms around me. "Life isn't about perfection. It's about trying again. And it's okay to feel lost sometimes." After a while, when I had composed myself, I asked her for advice regarding the meeting with my principal. She nodded knowingly, her voice gentle yet firm. "Stick to the truth, as difficult as that may be. People may not always understand, but standing by your principles is what creates true strength." Feeling slightly buoyed by her resolve, I allowed myself to forget the haunting laughter, if only for a moment. But as gently as hope nudged against my fears, my mind quickly returned to Michael, to the kindness he had shown in the barrage of pain I'd brought upon him. It jolted my heart. I needed to reach out to him. I grabbed my phone and hesitated over his contact. My fingers danced over the screen, skimming through the longing to connect and the stark fear of rejection. Finally, I typed, "Hey, I just want you to know that I'm here for you. I'm really sorry about everything. How can I help?" After hitting send, a heavy stillness enveloped me. Would he want to hear from me? The thought gnawed at my insides, but I reminded myself that every act of kindness could ignite a beacon of hope, however faint. Moments ticked by painfully slow until a notification lit up my screen, pulling me from my anxious reverie. I held my breath, anticipation swirling like a whirlpool. It was a message from Michael, but as I read the words, my heart plummeted into an abyss. I appreciate it, but I don't want to see you again. Just leave me alone. Chills ran down my spine as the reality of his response settled over me. The distance I sensed earlier had morphed into an unmistakable chasm, as if my heart had been cracked open, revealing the raw, aching void where our bond might have grown. Just as I was about to lose myself in despair, a knock at the door startled me, a soft yet insistent call that broke through my fog. "Hey, I have something for you." It was Mia. I swung the door open, startled, and she stood there holding a small, wrinkled paper in her hands. "Guess what?" she said with a spark of enthusiasm. "I found this today. I think you might want to see it." I blinked at her, momentarily confused. Then my eyes landed on the paper, a crumpled flyer half covered in graffiti. It seemed to announce a community event, a chance for teenagers to rally against bullying. My heart raced at the thought, a flicker of understanding igniting somewhere deep within. "This could be our chance," she urged, her voice unwavering as she placed the flyer in my hands. "We could do something meaningful. Together." The weight of my earlier despair felt lighter, and for the first time in hours, the knot in my chest began to loosen. But just as I started to fill with resolve, my phone buzzed again, pulling me back to reality. This time, the incoming message wasn't from Michael. Instead, it appeared to be from Jake, a video link, labeled "Check this out. Epic fail too." It contained a fresh wave of humiliation, designed to taunt not just me, but everyone tied to that painful day. My heart sank as I stared at the screen, raw fear mingling with anger and the fleeting glimmer of hope I clutched onto. The fight wasn't over, and the shadows of doubt and despair clamored for my attention once more. It felt like the world was conspiring to keep us down. But Mia's unwavering determination illuminated the darkness, her spirit of compassion calling me to action. "What do you say?" she urged, her gaze steady. "Let us turn this around. We can show everyone that standing together can change everything." I looked at her, drawn by her light, haunted by my own despair, torn between fear and hope. I could feel the world shift beneath the weight of our unspoken commitment. Could we really fight back against the cascading tide of negativity? With a single breath, I knew the answer lay in our hands. But in the realm of hope, shadows lingered just out of sight, waiting to pull the rug out from under us once more. As the evening descended into a cold, bitter twilight, a new determination began to unfurl within me. The thought of Jake's mocking video had the power to unravel everything that Mia and I aimed to build, yet her presence was a flicker of light against the encroaching darkness. The flyer crinkled in my grip as I took in Mia's earnest expression, and it ignited a spark of defiance within me. "Together," I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper, but it was enough to draw a smile from Mia, her eyes gleaming with the shared resolve that we could combat the waves of mockery and fear. Maybe, just maybe, we could wrestle control away from the taunting shadows that had plagued my days. The thought of the community event filled me with a bittersweet sense of hope, the promise of gathering with others who understood the pain of judgment, even as it reminded me of the isolation I experienced. And yet in that moment, connected to Mia and armed with purpose, fear felt slightly less suffocating. "This is bigger than just us," she continued, her enthusiasm growing. "There are so many people who need to hear the message that it's okay to be different, to speak up. We can be the voices that encourage others." I nodded, my heart racing. It was a daunting prospect, but the idea had begun to take root. What if we created a banner? Something bold, something that could grab attention? The idea of crafting something tangible filled me with a sense of control I hadn't felt in days. "Yes, and we can invite others to share their stories," Mia replied, weaving into my hope like an intricate tapestry. "We can make it go viral, so we can reach far beyond this community. It needs to be more than just a one-off event. It needs to be a movement." The thought sent shivers down my spine, an exhilarating chill that mingled with the fear that still clung to me. "Okay, let us do it," I breathed, feeling a surge of adrenaline push me forward. After our excited planning session, I walked Mia to the door. As I locked it behind her, I noticed the flyer still clutched in my hand, and I took a moment to breathe, suddenly overwhelmed by the seriousness of this undertaking. It was one thing to talk about standing up, but another entirely to actually do it. As I climbed into bed, the darkness wrapped around me like a blanket, but my heart raced with purpose rather than dread. I couldn't escape the specter of Michael's rejection, nor the looming animosity awaiting me in the school halls, but there was something I could fight for. The following day, buoyed by anticipation and an odd blend of hope and anxiety, Mia and I gathered supplies for our project. The vibrant colors we chose contrasted sharply with the dull gray of the world outside, a promise that change was possible, that voices would be heard. Amid the chaos of paint and laughter, I felt the walls that had closed in around me begin to loosen their grip, but the celebrations of creativity and camaraderie abruptly halted when we received a frantic text from Mia's younger brother, Ethan. "They're saying stuff about you guys on social media again. You need to see this." My heartbeat quickened as we pulled up the post, and my stomach sank upon reading the furious comments. Jake's followers had unleashed their venom once more, claiming that we were trying to act cool while actually being pathetic losers. The negativity was relentless, designed to crush any emerging hope. "Doesn't matter," Mia declared, her chin raised defiantly. "We are not backing down. If they want to throw hate at us, we'll respond with love and understanding. We'll show them that this is about more than just us." Nodding, I tried to mirror her confidence as doubt slithered into my thoughts. What if it doesn't work? What if people don't care? She locked eyes with me, her voice steady. But what if they do? What if even one person feels empowered to speak up because of us? We can't let fear stop us from trying, ever. I took a deep breath, reminded of my mother's assurances, and it sparked something deep inside me, a kind of courage I hadn't known I possessed. "You're right. We want to give them the power to silence us." As the days passed, preparations for our community event continued amidst the tidal wave of negativity. Strangers shared kind words. Older students offered to help design graphics, and the tide began to shift slightly. Each act of kindness became a thread, weaving an unexpected tapestry of support. However, just as I started feeling the pull of momentum, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message that would shatter my fragile optimism. It was a direct message from someone I hardly recognized, my old friend Sarah, who I hadn't spoken to since before junior high. I opened it, bracing myself, and the chilling words jumped out at me. "I heard about your little movement. You really think that that's going to change anything? You're just a joke." A lump formed in my throat, and I could feel the shadows creeping in again, threatening to engulf everything we had built over the past few days. Before I could respond, Mia's phone rang, a frantic call from Ethan. "There's been a protest at school," he said, voice trembling. "They're gathering against yours, and you have to see this." Panic clawed its way back as Mia and I exchanged terrified glances. Everything we worked for suddenly felt at stake. It was as if the shadows surrounding us were heightening, ready to descend and pull us under the weight of their malice. In that moment, I understood not only was I standing against the remnants of my past, but I was also fighting for the future we envisioned, one where people could truly feel safe and accepted. But as the harsh reality of backlash approached, I couldn't shake the gripping fear that this might be the very moment I'd finally lose everything. The phone clutched in my hands felt impossibly heavy as I prepared myself to confront the storm brewing on the horizon. Whatever the world had to throw at me, I knew I had to hold on to hope. But as my heart raced, I couldn't help but wonder, what if hope wasn't enough? What if the shadows swallowed us whole? The morning dawned gray and heavy, as if the very sky reflected the turmoil storming within me. I felt the weight of uncertainty clinging to my skin, an unwelcome chill alongside the unwashed laundry of discontent I'd been trying to shake off. Today was the day of our community event, and while Mia and I had poured our hearts into planning, the thought of facing the protest at school made my stomach churn. The sun barely peeked through the thick clouds as I stood before my mirror, fresh paint smudged on my hands and a determined expression etched into my features. This was my chance, my moment to stand up, not just for my own dignity, but for all the others who had faced the lash of mockery and scorn. Yet as I made my way to the venue, the chatter of the protest buzzed in my head, the fervent anger of students gathering against us like a storm cloud ready to erupt. My phone buzzed, but I silenced it. The taunts had become like a second language, one I no longer wanted to hear. Mia? I called as I stepped into the warmth of the community center, where the scent of fresh paint mingled intoxicatingly with determination. She was stringing up our banner together in uniqueness. Her brow furrowed in concentration, but broke into a smile when she saw me. This is where we start. She beamed, gesturing around us at the vibrant colors, the breaths of creativity etched into the very walls. But as I looked around, a nagging worry persisted. What if they don't care? What if no one comes? My voice faltered, vulnerability seeping through the cracks of my bravado. Mia stepped closer, her expression gentler. We'll make them care. We want to be silenced. We are not alone, you know. Just then, a soft knock interrupted us, and the door creaked open. An unfamiliar figure stood at the threshold, an older woman with eyes filled with understanding and empathy. She had a warmth that instantly made the room feel more inviting. I heard about your event, she said, her voice a soothing balm. I'm Annabelle, a teacher at the school, and I just wanted to stop by. I have a few students who'd like to share their stories tonight. A rush of gratitude flooded through me. Here was an unexpected kindness, a gentle hand in the midst of chaos. That would mean so much, I managed to say, feeling some of the tension seep away. Every story matters, Annabelle said with a nod, her eyes turning serious. And you too are doing something remarkable. Don't let the negativity overtake you. I nodded, taking a deep breath. The subtle shift in atmosphere ignited a flicker of hope within me. Perhaps we did have allies. After all, the event preparations continued. More people arrived, each person carrying their own narrative of struggle and resilience. The lively conversations filled the air, laughter intertwining with our collective will. Despite the looming threat outside, we united over snacks, art supplies, and shared experiences. But just as I began to feel the weight of negativity lift, my phone buzzed angrily in my pocket. One last gasp of the darkness that refused to release its grip on me. I fished it out, and my heart dropped at what I found. It was a new post from Jake, his smugness practically oozing from the screen. A picture of me and Mia, taken earlier that week, accompanied by a caption that turned my stomach. These pathetic losers think they can make a difference. LOL. Come to the protest, it's going to be a spectacle. I felt the air rush out of me as I turned to Mia, my alarm reflected in her expression. What are we going to do? I felt like a paper boat being tossed in a fierce current, unmoored and anxious. We fight back, she said, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear that quaked beneath the surface. We don't let him dictate how people see us. The sincerity in her eyes infused me with determination, but it was short-lived. Moments later the room went silent as a collective murmur spread through the crowd, faces turned toward the windows, eyes widening in shock. I followed their gazes and my stomach dropped as I saw it. A throng of students outside, holding up signs, chanting in protest against us. The words "Stop the Losers" and "Don't waste your time" blared from their mouths, each syllable striking harder than the last. In that moment, amidst the taunts and jeers, I felt something break inside me. The fragile comfort we had built felt like it was crumbling into dust. It was as if Jake's laughter echoed in my ears, drowning out the resolve we fought so hard to create. But then Mia squeezed my hand, grounding me against the flood of negativity. This isn't over. We're not backing down, she said through clenched teeth, her spirit unyielding in the face of adversity. But even her strength couldn't shield me from the nerve-wracking sensations that rippled through me. I wasn't just fighting Jake's team anymore. I was battling the echoes of everyone who believed in me, everyone who had turned their back at some point. As the protest raged outside, I could feel the hesitation creeping in, shadows creeping into my resolve. Maybe this was the moment they would all see me not as a beacon of hope, but as the joke Jake had claimed I was. And just when I thought despair would swallow me whole, my phone chimed again, a message that froze my heart. I opened it to read a simple yet haunting question from Sarah. What are you doing? Are you sure it's worth it? I stood at the precipice, uncertainty clawing at my insides. Was it worth it? With the enormity of the protest raging outside, my thoughts spiraled into a pit of despair, teetering on the edge between hope and despair. The question lingered in the air, threatening to unravel everything we worked for. The chants crescendoed outside. I gripped Mia's hand, a lifeline against the storm. I knew then I had to find my voice. Not just for me, but for everyone who had ever felt like they were drowning in the shadows. But when I looked outside again, I couldn't shake the chilling thought. What if this fight paralyzed me instead of setting us free? The evening unfurled like a delicate origami crane, beautiful yet frail, suspended between hope and despair. The chants outside grew louder, an indignant symphony of voices that clamored for attention, and the energies of those gathered within the community center swirled around us, saturating the air with an electric charge that buzzed against my skin. Yet, with every shout, it tore a little further at my resolve. As the moment skated toward the start of our event, my heart pounded against my ribcage, racing like a trapped bird in a cage, desperate for freedom. The chaotic scene outside felt like a countdown, each vocal quiver magnifying my insecurities. Would they storm inside? Would they disrupt everything? Everyone who is here tonight is brave. Annabelle reminded the group we had gathered, standing under our banner, her voice breaking through the noise, filling the space with a nurturing warmth. You are the embodiment of resilience, and we are creating a safe place for our stories to be heard. I watched her, the gentleness of her encouragement wrapping around each person like a comforting embrace. The chatter grew softer, and I could feel the collective determination pooling as they nodded, breathing in her words. But even with Annabelle's reassurances, the shadow of Jake loomed large in my mind. I couldn't shake the question Sarah had sent earlier, a haunting whisper in an empty hallway. Are you sure it's worth it? What if we're just fueling their fire? I murmured to Mia, who stood resolute by my side, determined to fight this together. What if they come in here and tear us apart? She cast a quick glance towards the door, her expression a mixture of fire and steel. And what if we stand up, and it inspires one person? Just one? Her hand tightened around mine. We're not doing this just for us. We're doing it for everybody who has felt silenced. Her words ignited a flicker of courage in my chest, but the flicker struggled against the growing shadows. I closed my eyes for a heartbeat, feeling the swell of vulnerability like being on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping around me, teetering between succumbing to fear and embracing the freedom of flying. As the large clock on the wall struck 7, I took a deep breath, summoning my strength. I could hear our guests assembling, preparing to share their narratives. The first volunteer, a shy girl named Lily, stepped up to the microphone, her movements tentative yet firm. I watched with rapt attention, the room falling into an expectant silence. I've always been different, she began, her voice trembling but rich with authenticity. And for the longest time, I thought that meant I was broken. Being teased in school, it made me feel alone. Her story unfurled like a ribbon caught in the wind, connecting with all of us that gathered, the brave, and as she spoke of finding her voice, every syllable felt like it built a bridge to a collective understanding. So powerful was her vulnerability that I could see heads nodding slowly, expressions shifting from skepticism to empathy. Yet, the chants grew louder again, raw and unyielding, crashing against the walls like waves against a cliff. I stole glances outside, adrenaline racing through me. The sight of my peers rallying against us stirred a darkness within, stinging with memories of laughter filled with mocking, of isolation that turned cold on winter nights. But here, at this moment, I wanted to ignite hope, not quench it. Before I could think too much, I stepped forward and took the microphone from Lily, feeling the weight of every soul surrounding me. I am not a loser. I am here fighting because I believe that how I feel matters, how you feel matters, and we all have the right to express who we are. As I spoke, a solitary tear slid down my cheek, cascading down, and jolting me back to the reality of my own struggles. Faces of understanding flickered back at me, some glistening with their own silent tears. There was a shared warmth, a collective sigh that understood the truth of our experiences. Just as the atmosphere thickened with emotion, a commotion outside pricked at my senses. I turned to the window, and my heart sank. A group of students, led by none other than Jake himself, were breaking through the protest line, and the tension within me twisted sharply. You call this community? He yelled, voice laced with mockery. This is pathetic. Inside the center, the shock rippled through us, echoing off the walls. I knew we had to remain steadfast, but every instinct urged me to close my heart to protect it from the inevitable storm. I felt the collective dread rising, The vulnerability of standing alone against that wave. But then Mia stepped back to me, her presence an anchor against the tumult. We cannot let them silence us. We stand together. Amidst the fray, she turned back to our audience and shouted, "Who are we?" Together in uniqueness. They roared back, a declaration that reverberated within the walls. And as my heart raced, fueled by the sheer audacity of our united voices clashing with Jake's scornful laughter, I realized something crucial. This was our moment not just to fight, but to unveil the strength we had buried beneath the weight of fear. The jarring noise outside spilled into our gathering, and Jake pulled out his phone to capture the ruckus, eyes glinting with malicious intent. "This will be a trending topic tomorrow," he shouted, capturing footage of our defiance. And it was in that moment, gazing into the lenses of 24 eyes, filled with hope, fear, and unbreakable resolve, that I felt a surge of determination wash over me. My own truth, intertwined with theirs, felt beautiful and raw. But just as I collected the courage to stand taller and speak once more, my phone buzzed violently against my leg, a message that made me freeze. My heart plummeted again as I opened it to read, "You're making a mistake. Let it go." The sender's name flashed before me, Sarah. In that electric moment, while armed with newfound conviction, I stood on the precipice of a choice. Would I let the moment pass, silenced against the noise, or would I take a leap into the unknown, risking it all to fight not just for myself, but for every one of us who had felt voiceless? The walls of the community center felt like they were closing in. I peered out once more, Jake's laughter echoing against our cries, and the fear clawed at my insides. Time seemed to stretch like liquid, thickening with indecision, yet all I knew was that I could not back down now. The air buzzed with uncertainty, and I could feel my thoughts racing like wild horses, galloping towards a destination unknown. The weight of Sarah's message settled like a stone in my stomach, anchoring me in place while the world around me spun into chaos. Her warning seeped into the corners of my mind, wresting control away from my resolve. Even as Mia's voice urged me to rise above the clamor, I turned my attention back to Jake, standing defiantly amid his crew, filming our vulnerability like it was a game, his mocking grin the very embodiment of the hatred we were fighting against. Part of me wanted to scream, to let him know that we wouldn't cower in the face of judgment, that this was larger than his twisted perspective. Yet there was still a gnawing fear at the back of my mind that whispered doubts louder than any chant. "Don't listen to him. He doesn't understand," I murmured to Mia, the comfort of her presence reigniting the flickering courage within me. Even as a storm brewed outside our transparent walls, that I could feel the hearts of everyone behind me, united and pumping with a rhythm of resistance. It was beautiful, yet overwhelming. I took another deep breath, letting it roll around my lungs, fighting the urge to let fear freeze me in my tracks. Mia interlaced her fingers with mine, squeezing tightly. "This is about us, not just him," she said softly, her eyes steady and sure. "We have a chance to show everyone what real strength looks like." I nodded but couldn't shake the sensation that time was slipping away and that I was being pulled inward, toward a reality that maybe I was not ready to confront. The chants outside morphed into a chaotic crescendo, a dizzying mix of anger and determination. Jake caught the eyes of his entourage, who shared in his laughter, easy, dismissive laughter that thrived on our vulnerability. It was as if they were unaware of the pulse of pain that throbbed within our gathered community, a pain that felt almost tangible in the air, weaving through our collective stories. And yet, during the swell of emotion, a small voice broke through, tentative yet strong. It was Lily again, standing up in the front row, tears streaming down her cheeks. "This is not pathetic," she shouted, and her conviction was the spark that ignited others. "I am not broken. I am beautiful, and I have a story worth sharing." Her words punctured the air, slicing through Jake's ridicule like a shimmering knife through darkness. The room erupted with cheers, fists raised in solidarity, and all around me, I felt an energy shift. The very fabric of doubt began to fray, unraveling the fear that had bound me. Mia leaned in close, her eyes bright with fierce determination. "Remember why we're here. Remember what we stand for," she whispered. "This is about unity, about breaking chains." The electricity in the air was electric now. I lifted my chin, meeting the eyes of my community, My family, a gathering of souls with stories screaming to emerge. We are here to rise above the noise. I found my own voice rising, louder than I intended, but emboldened by events unfolding around me. That S when I saw it. A ripple of kindness transformed the bitter air. I noticed a girl in the back, someone I had never spoken to, stepping forward with the quiet grace of someone who had found their voice. She held up a small note card, a simple message scrawled in shaky handwriting. You are not alone. One by one, others began to show their cards, handwritten testimonies of struggle, of resilience, of pain made meaningful. The walls seemed to ripple with their sincerity, and the desire to turn the tide against our oppressors filled me with a new warmth, strength flooding my veins. But just as solidarity swelled within our circle, the confrontation escalated outside. Jake shouted louder. You think your little words matter? This will all just fade away, just like your stories will when no one cares. His taunts were filled with venom, aimed at crushing the collective spirit we had begun to cultivate. Heart pounding like a drum in my chest, I wanted to lash out, to confront him head-on. But instead, there was a moment of clarity, a pause that allowed me to observe that he was grasping at straws, terrified of the strength we were discovering in this very act of vulnerability. This is not a story that fades, I exclaimed, letting the power of my voice build alongside the burgeoning confidence of my peers. This is a revolution in kindness and respect. This is about what we choose to remember, what we choose to carry forward. The eyes of our audience widened, and I could feel the room swell with defiance, the energy shifting against the noise outside, rising up above it all. We were a collective tapestry of struggles, woven together by the threads of courage that far surpassed Jake's negativity. Who are we? Mia shouted, eyes blazing. Together in uniqueness. We roared back, voices rising like a powerful tide, filling every crevice with hope. But just as the moment reached its zenith, the tension surged once again, pushing back against our newfound courage. Suddenly, from behind Jake, I caught movement. Someone else was stepping forward to join him. Someone whose presence felt like lightning striking in dark skies. It was Sarah. My pulse quickened as dread washed over me. What are you doing? I whispered into the cacophony, heart racing, the weight of her unexpected appearance sending a wave of fear into my chest. Would she reinforce Jake's mocking, or would she stand with us? My every doubt tightened like storm clouds around me, and I knew, in that moment, that everything was about to change. The moment Sarah stepped forward, the air in the room turned electric, charged with a tension that threatened to burst. The cheers faded into a stunned silence, our collective breath caught in our throats as we waited for her to speak. I could see Jake's smug expression shifting as he realized the power her presence wielded. This was a trap he believed he could spring. What are you doing here? I managed to whisper, the words slipping out before I could ground myself. Fear tightened like a vice around my chest, a cold reminder of the stakes involved in this moment. Sarah glanced at me, her face a mask of resolve laced with uncertainty. The compassion I had once known danced in the depths of her eyes, struggling to surface through the shadows of our past. I came to talk, she said, her voice steady but fragile, as though each word could shatter her into a million pieces. The laughter had died down completely outside, the sudden quiet feeling almost menacing, as if the universe had stilled to watch our next move. Jake leaned closer, eyes glinting with eagerness. This was his chance to draw blood. Talk, he sneered. What's left to say? You've already chosen sides, Sarah. You think siding with these losers is going to help you? For just a moment, a flicker of hurt crossed her face, and I recognized that pain it mirrored my own, that of every person gathered around us, fighting against a tide of despair. But would Sarah, too, be dragged into this vortex, lost forever to the weight of belonging? Listen, she said, lifting her chin defiantly, this isn't about sides. It's about understanding. We all have stories we've hidden behind our masks. How will we ever learn if we don't listen? The sincerity in her voice resonated, not just with my heart, but within the consciousness of our community. Yet I couldn't stop the fear from rising within me like a tide that threatened to engulf everything. Did you really mean what you said, Sarah? About hiding? About understanding? Or are we just part of your next act? I was terrified of this fragile thread bringing us together, this connection between us that could snap at any moment. I messed up terribly, she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. But I'm starting to see that what we all did was wrong. I'm here to apologize and to stand with you all. Just then, an unexpected figure pushed through the crowd beside Sarah. My breath hitched. Mom. I hadn't spoken with her since the incident, and there she stood, eyes filled with sincerity and a hint of sorrow. Sarah, wait, my mother spoke gently, her voice trembling slightly. I know it's hard to face the truth, but it's never too late. If you can acknowledge your mistakes, you can move towards something brighter. You have to choose that path for it to mean anything. Her words stirred something within me, igniting a flicker of hope, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah's sudden change of heart was too good to be true. I tore my gaze between Sarah and the ever-watchful crowd, tension thickening as I realized her newfound intentions could shatter or strengthen the fragile unity we had created. Jake's face contorted with rage as he processed what was happening. You think they'll listen to you? You think they'll accept your apology? He roared, throwing his hands in the air like a maestro conducting a symphony of chaos. They're too busy being pathetic, too busy diving deep into their victim mentality to care about your empty promises. The crowd shifted uneasily, some visibly torn. I felt Mia's hand tighten around mine, grounding me amidst the turmoil. Don't let him win, she whispered fiercely. I'm not, I began to say, but my voice faltered as Sarah courageously interjected. I was wrong to think that dismissing pain defined strength. I thought laughter was all we needed, but I see now that it belittled the very essence of who we are. The honesty in her confession echoed in the air like a prayer, yet doubt also crept in alongside the flood of emotions. The fear of betrayal hung heavily, threatening to drown out her sincerity. Are you really ready to own what you did, Sarah? I challenged, my heart racing as I took the plunge. To stand here and be held accountable? I am, she replied, the fire in her eyes igniting something fierce. I'm here, ready to wear my scars and speak my truth, as you all have. There was an audible murmur among the crowd, a hesitant ripple through the collective. Maybe it was the flicker of hope imbued by her words. The way she spoke made me want to believe. It was almost contagious, this yearning for change. But across from us, Jake seized this moment, his chaos simmering again. No one changes overnight, especially not you, Sarah. You're just as weak as the rest of them. You think this will just wash over as you play the role of the martyr? Suddenly, Sarah took a step closer to me, the courage in her eyes igniting a spark. My past doesn't have to dictate my future, she said, her voice strong. Let us create a new narrative together, a rebirth of understanding. It's time to rewrite the story. Just then, one of the note cards from the back slipped from the hands of a girl. Her words, "We all deserve redemption," fluttered like a lost feather, and my heart thudded in unison with the one voice that dared to speak truth. But just as it felt like the tide had truly turned and a moment of hope blossomed, a thrumming notification echoed from my phone laying forgotten in my pocket. Panic seized me as I reached for it, the screen illuminating a message that shattered every hopeful thread weaving through the room. Just so you know, I have footage of your past, all of it. And I'm about to go live. Suddenly, the color drained from Sarah's face. Jake's laughter returned, this time rich with malice, fueling the flame of chaos that threatened to encompass us all. The sanctuary we had begun to forge teetered on the edge of collapse, and the unsettling truth smoldered like ashes in the dark. Everything was beginning to unravel in a way none of us had ever anticipated. I should have known that the shadows would strike back darker than I imagined, more vicious, ready to rip apart the fragile fabric we had stitched together. Panic coursed through my veins as I understood the magnitude of the threat Jake had just broadcasted. The insidious grin plastered on his face announced that he thrived on our vulnerability, and as he held that phone aloft, broadcasting our chaos to his loyal followers, I felt a crushing sense of dread settle in my heart. Every breath turned ragged as whispers of uncertainty filled the room. Messy moments of hurt began flooding back, the chaos of laughter and pain intertwining. No, this is supposed to be about healing, I thought helplessly. Instead, it felt as if Jake had managed to import the very essence of our shame right back to us, poised to explode into an even crueler revelation. Yet even in the face of this impending disaster, Something rebellious stirred deep within me, an ember igniting in defiance of the darkness. I looked at Mia, her eyes wide with horror, but somewhere inside her, I saw a flicker of resilience mirroring my own. Just as Jake began to unleash the footage, I suddenly understood that our moment was not over. We were standing on the brink, and this time, I would not allow his poison to take root. Stop! My voice rang out, shaky yet alive, cutting through the noise like a lifeline against the tide. Everyone turned to me, uncertainty reframing the air around us. You don't control this moment, I shouted. The earth shifted beneath me, pulling strength from the depths of my soul as I faced the gaggles of ooze that unrelentingly clung to our past. We are here to rewrite our story. The energy in the room swelled, igniting behind my words. In that moment, I saw acknowledgement in those standing around me, my peers, people who had come together to share and inspire, who had dreamt of something more. I felt a surge of courage ripple into my veins, igniting them with warmth. Let us take this back, I urged, not just to Jake, but to every voice that had ever doubted, every soul that had felt small and inconsequential. We choose to show them what real strength looks like. We will not cower beneath shame. Amidst the chaos, a quiet determination echoed through the room, a realization that we had the power to take our narrative back. One by one, hands began to shoot up, every individual willing to be seen in their raw authenticity. I am more than your jokes, someone shouted. I deserve kindness too. Each voice built on the next, transforming the noise into a symphony of resistance. Together, Mia shouted, her spirit alight. This fight is ours to claim. Together, echoed others, our voices weaving through the air, pushing back against the tide of judgment seeping toward us. I locked eyes with Sarah, who took a small but brave step forward, her breath catching as she readied herself. I stood by, silent when I should have supported. But today, I choose to uplift you all, to listen and be better. We are united. The atmosphere shifted, energy spiraled around us, a kaleidoscope of resilience, and my mind flickered back to what mattered most, the very fabric of connection woven from stories shared, no matter how painful. Let me tell my truth, I proclaimed, heart racing as I embraced the microphone, my voice steadying in a sea of affirmation. I glanced at Jake, who wore an expression of shock, entirely unprepared for the surge of solidarity against him. We have experienced hurt, laughter that has cut deep. But today, we're standing together, unafraid to peel back the skin of our pain, to rise from the ashes stronger, I declared, each word producing energy that seemed to lift us all. And then, I turned to the crowd, each willing soul lighting up the darkness. Every person here has a story deserving of respect, and this moment doesn't belong to you anymore, Jake. With that, I witnessed the shy members of our collective stand up, their voices spiraling in unison. Unexpectedly, I felt a convergence, an undeniable force where everyone replaced negativity with assertion. The message resonated. A young woman from the back shouted in future-defining tone, "I'm not ashamed of who I am, and you cannot erase me." And with each proclamation, males from our school joined in, standing with us as the proud warriors we become. Jake faltered, uncertainty flaring in his eyes as our voices swelled into a resounding declaration, intertwining narratives of struggle that refused to remain hidden beneath the surface. And amidst it all, I found my footing again, a harmonious theme reflecting the diversity of experiences we had all been forced to carry. Then came a quiet calm, that moment where the universe paused and let stillness rise like a rising sun, waiting for us to break free. I turned toward Jake and let the truth spill, every word a testament to the power of our narratives. You thought your cool laughter made us who we are? I declared, anger lacing my voice. But strength is found in lifting others, not breaking them. Our arena doesn't belong to you. You chose sides, but we choose community. You chose to belittle, but we choose to uplift. As I spoke, my heart pounded fiercely, rippling as the conviction bolted through me, soaring like a flame bursting from the remnants of decay. And as I finished, I felt a weight lift, like branches releasing their holding after a long storm. Jake's power, once suffocating, began to crumble beneath our collective strength, a vine cut free from the choke of its own roots. A hush spread through those assembled, I could practically feel the shock settle in. Suddenly, something in the air shifted as we began to feel a new and ethereal energy washing over us, raw and beautiful, as the voices around me intertwined seamlessly with our truths colliding together. I knew, in the depths of my heart, that we had taken back what was rightfully ours. We would no longer allow negativity to drown our voices. Jake, taken aback, fumbled with the phone as others began backing away from him, their own narratives redirecting away from hate. The more confidence blossomed, lessening the anchor that had tethered fear to each one of us. I saw the resolve in his face glimmer with uncertainty, retreating into the shadows that had birthed him. Together, we roared again, and Jake stumbled back, his demeanor slipping from malice to fear. The darkness that once consumed us began cracking, revealing bright light bursting forth a warmth that suffocated judgment, refusing to let it rise once more. In that moment, I caught Sarah's eye. The change that had blossomed within her felt palpable, a reminder that could be found even in those who had chosen silence. "We are united," I whispered, feeling this new chapter unfold around us. Empowerment flowed through the crowd like bright waves of energy, even as Jake's sneering gaze faltered. I knew we had chosen hope and camaraderie over isolation and hate. The world was shifting. I felt the weight of a load beginning to lift off my shoulders. The anxiety that had chased me for so long began to disperse under the collective strength we had built. And there, amidst the echoes of laughter and voices swirling around me, I saw myself for the very first time not a villain, not a fool outfitted in shame, but a warrior forged in love, a vessel for healing echoing anew. As he retreated, Jake fading into fleeting moments and raw confessions, I looked at my friends and our newfound companions. It became clear, we would wear our scars not as mere remnants of the past, but as badges of honor for all who knew the truth behind them. And in that realization, I found myself swallowing a breath of clarity, a heart pounding with optimism that felt endless and infinite. This wasn't merely our victory. It was a collective consciousness rewriting the very foundations of who we were and who we'd become. With a sense of purpose ignited in my bones, I raised my voice. "We will carry on from here, together, unafraid." And as they picked up the cadence, our message igniting once more, the world shimmered beneath us, alive, robust, and eternally transformative. Because in that whirlwind of emotions, one truth resonated loudly. Though the shadows may rise again, I knew now that together, we walked forward into the light. And as I stood among them, finally free from the shackles born from fears past, I realized one thing above all. Sometimes, the most powerful act of all is simply refusing to give in, and as we united, I understood that together, we were unstoppable. With every cry, every shout, my heart thundered with love, an irrevocable gift forming bonds stronger than steel. And today was a shining testament to the healing in every individual spirit willing to rise. The sky trembled as we embraced our future, and beneath it, our world vibrated with a common understanding, a promise that we would never again let hate overshadow love. Because in the end, we stand together, and together, we will always find a way out of darkness.